guest to join us.
The
Right?
show is brought to you by Ambala, quality food products since 1965. Ambala, wishing all Ramadan radio listeners blessed Ramadan and Joy Seed. The show is
There you are. We are ready to go. So thank you very much for Ambala, who has sponsored this program today. My good friend Alex is on. Are you with us, Alex, on the Zoom?
Yep. Hi. Morning, Zed. I didn't realize it was Ambala who was sponsoring. That's very
Yes.
sort of interesting, I must say.
They are very supportive of all community development activities throughout the country, and I thought, great, that is fantastic. So each year they sponsor radio amongst many other organizations throughout the country, and of course this week we have been pushing for all corporates, all commercial sector to join with the partner with some homeless charity or partner with community organizations, Alex, so that we can do things in partnership with our government, our local government, our national government, and our commercial sector, if we can bring everybody on together. So, Alex, you are totally first time on Radio Ramadan, so I'd like to welcome you today to join us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Zed.
And where are you today, Alex, right now?
In the Quantox in Somerset.
Wonderful. That is a nice farming land, isn't it?
Yep. No, I've got a little farm up here now.
Of course, our history goes back quite some time from our business sector. We call it the commercial sector here in the Radio Ramadan. And for many years, I've known you, that you have been very active in various across the board community activism, I would say, it from the early days, from the 60s right up to today, right up to 2022. So it's many years, that is, Alex.
Yep, it's probably more decades than we'd care to remember, Zed, that we've known each other and done various things together. Certainly, I've really appreciated knowing you and the things and times we've had together over those years.
Of course, we bounce off each other really well. And I always say that when you are in the path of doing good, God will bring good people also in your path, so you can work together as a team and develop good partnerships and good understandings and exchange faith ideas, exchange humanitarian ideas, and amongst so many good things, we can develop ourselves as human beings and create that solidarity and develop the unity.
Yes, I certainly think that spiritual insight, the way things fit together by God's will, has inspired both of us really to move our lives forward the way it has.
That is absolutely the spirit of Ramadan, where we are always talking here on Radio Ramadan about the 3Ds, which is quite interesting. Everybody has their own version, but the 3Ds at the Ramadan are discipline, direction, and detoxify. And all of them are important because this is the month of Ramadan where we have to detoxify mentally, physically, spiritually, and hope that we will continue to be like that, not only in the 1 month of Ramadan, but the 11 months and the 11 months and the 12 months thereafter. And
I've got to admit, Zed, I'd probably add a fourth D, which is devotion.
of course, discipline, direction, devotion. Well, on our list here, when we were making this up, devotion and detoxify was a slash. So that's interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. So that is where we are. But of course, Alex, just run us through your career path and from your university days and so on.
Going even further back, I'm here, as I said, back in Somerset again, and this is where I was born, in Somerset, and certainly I see Somerset as, in a way, a historical, spiritual centre of the UK. So I feel very fortunate that I was born here. And I went to school and I left school and signed on for university. But then I had a year on the Pacific. I worked on a fishing boat on the Pacific for a year. And at 18, I became financially independent. I then went to study architecture in London. And I found it very difficult to find anywhere to live. So I ended up squatting in London in the 1970s. And where I was squatting, there was big developers who were buying up houses. They were smashing the houses up. So the whole area was going into sort of degradation and disrepute. And as I was studying architecture, I thought this sort of behavior was really wrong. So the way I decided to oppose this and try to inspire change was to live there without using money. So I had a year squatting at the north end of Tottenham Court Road without using money. And I'm pleased to say that in the end, Camden Council compulsorily purchased this land, did the development themselves, and the development was then for the benefit of the people of Camden. So although probably living without money wasn't really effective in that change, it certainly was, I suppose, the very first political activist stance that I took.
Of course, I do recall I met a few others in your group over the years, and quite a number of them, they went on to be very successful in their businesses, rightfully. The names.
Yes, I said, I mean, there was architects. I suppose there were some very, very successful lawyers, architects. There was a very successful writer as well. There was amazing mathematicians. So there was a whole group from that Tolmers Square era who've gone on and made a difference. So, it was a very formative time for me. And one, although it was a bit extreme, was an experience I'm really pleased I had. And it certainly taught me what money is, for instance, which is a very useful lesson.
Well, we always say here, money is a tool of rule, and it's always been like that, and it's ongoing. It's what we do with our money that is a crucial factor, isn't it, Alex?
Yes, I think money is one of the three great tools. So, certainly when I look at what I want to achieve in life, I consider now that I have three tools, and money is one of them.
Of course. And it's something we all need to live by. But the question always is that do you live for money or do you live by money? Which one is it? This is an interesting one. For all of you listening in right now, you'll always, it's a little bit of homework for you to answer that question. Do you live by money or do you live for money?
I suppose because I lived for a year without using money at all, what I realized, to be honest, that was the freest time I've ever had in my life. I mean, it was startlingly free. So to that degree, it does put a spin on the role that money plays in our lives. That when I lived money free, I was at my most free.
Of course, this is quite interesting. We were talking about this yesterday in a program that when we were in Uganda, the solidarity, the unity we had amongst all the Asians there that came to England in 1972 when we were expelled. One thing we all had in common is we had no money. And sometimes you have no money and you have solidarity, you have unity. And when you do have money, that tends to go its separate ways. People go their separate ways, and that is the history. And over the years, we have seen every decade we have seen different refugees that have come along to the UK, and we are looking all the time, talking about prevention rather than cure. So your journey of life has been packed with, I would say, incident, action, a lot of interesting things. I could write a book or two about the whole group that you were involved with at the time when you were in your activism. And if you remember, in the 80s, we had the terminology called eco warrior.
Yes, I mean, I suppose when you say I was an eco warrior in the 1980s, I've been an eco warrior all my life. I'm still an eco warrior.
Of course, yeah.
But
Now, one of the interesting things back in those days is when the group that you were living together with, how they would collect the fruit from the market, the Spitalfields market in London, and you would come and recycle that fruit, and you would set up a little shop and sell that fruit.
Well, that's, as I said, I was living for a year without using money. I was living with the lady who became my first wife at the time, and after a year of living without money for reasons I'm still unsure about, she got a bit fed up with it. So we decided to start using money again. And the very next day, I found £2 on the street and took a van down to Nine Elms Market, and it cost exactly £2 to get the van in. So I took the van in and went round the same dustbins where I'd been picking up thrown away fruit and veg, and we squatted a shop and started selling thrown away fruit and veg. So that's the beginning of my business in 1975. And I was doing various jobs, sort of handyman jobs in the area to bring in extra cash to invest in the shop as we turned into a natural food shop. And in 1975 or 1976, that's why I was saying it was a bit one of those synchronous events that it is Ambala who is sponsoring this show. I painted, first of all, I stripped down completely and then painted the front of the very first Ambala shop on
Drummond Street?
On Drummond Street, yeah. So
in Euston.
In Euston, yeah. So that's where I was living. And I worked for quite a few of the Asian businesses there doing odd jobs. Three that come to mind is Ambala and then Diwana, a Puri house that used to belong to Giant Patel. And I also did some work in the mosque on North Gower Street. The lead blew off the roof there, and they asked me to go and put all the lead back on the roof again, which I did. So I was pretty embedded in the Asian community there, and they were really the successful business people in that area.
Of course, they have gone on to become very big companies now, and in their own right, they've been through that journey, and it's quite interesting, isn't it, how years later you actually met one of the sons from the Ambala family in your travels, and told him that story. And at that time, he was doing his education, and he would vividly remember the painting at the shop in the 70s, 1975.
Good. No, it's good that these things get remembered. Certainly, I remember it. It was they had about 8 layers of paint on the front of the shop. It was a really serious job peeling it all off. I remember I was there for days with my blowgun burning the paint off the front. It looked very good at the end, I must say. I was rather pleased with that job.
Of course, we'll have to one day go down that memory lane together, you and I, and buy a sweet and have a cup of tea over there. But
yeah, well, I still go into the Ambala on Drummond Street. Probably I'm in there 3 or 4 times a year. I like my gulab jamuns and my pistachio kulfi. I think they're my two of my favorites from there.
Very, very interesting. So, of course, Alex, you've had a good interaction with the Asian community in the 70s and also going on forward in your business career as well, right up to today, so it's quite a journey. And it's good to know that you have gone along each decade and experienced those changes. And you've worked in the mosque, so you know about the essence of Ramadan.
Yes, yeah, I think one of the key things I did, that I set up another business with Nari Shah. You know, Nari was one of the other Ugandan Asians who came to this country. He's got a business now called Premier Fruit and Nut, and we set up a business together called Organic Trade, importing and distributing and packing organic food. You know, and that was a very successful. You know, he bought out my half. I paid off my mortgage with that. I know Nari very well, so it's great that I've had that relationship with Nari as well. So, you know, I went over for dinner with him end of last year, I suppose. See him and Raj and his wife and family. It's very good to maintain and enhance these long-standing relationships like that.
Of course, all this is very relevant, isn't it, to build the community spirit across cultures and diversities. Now, where you are currently in the King's Cross area, you are based at, aren't you? Camden, King's Cross. I mean,
yes.
How many diversities would there be there now?
Oof, I don't know. I mean, just in my business, we've got at least 9 or 10 different nationalities working there. Maybe more than that, maybe 12. So
you could almost set up your own United Nations.
I was getting that way.
Yeah.
You know, and it is you know, in the whole area, it's, you know, an extraordinarily diverse place. So it's wonderful like that. I think what I've realized too, I think there's 4 things. You know, I think community is absolutely a key area I want to enhance as much as I can. And I think there's 4 things really that a good, strong community needs, which is good, affordable food, good, affordable homes, good jobs, and it also needs transparent governance. So the community needs to know what's happening, and they need to have a genuine say in how areas develop. Certainly that's one of the things I'm pushing for in the King's Cross area.
That's wonderful. And I think any successes that you will have in that respects can be shared countrywide, can be shared locally, nationally, globally. And this is how we take something and we spread it and we multiply it. So the goodness of it is enjoyed by everybody in humanity.
Yes, as I said, you know, I think there's 3 great tools that I'm using. One of them is money, the other is knowledge, and the third, and I think the most valuable one, is inspiration. You know, I really aspire to inspire those changes, and there is a genuine opportunity, I think, at King's Cross to build a genuinely world-leading sustainable development, building it as a community land trust, so it belongs to the people who live there, and embed within that these 4 things: good affordable food, good affordable homes, good jobs, and transparent governance. And certainly that's what I'm working hard and probably have been working over the last 10 years to achieve that.
Now, you're in an area where green spaces are absolutely scarce, and the older factories are now multi-story flats. And in London, you have this. This is a problem, and in outside of London, like in our city here, we have space, and this is where we can be inspired by the work you're trying to do over there. That we have the space here, and we can emulate that more easily, readily, if the will is there from the people, from our local government. with support from the national government, and a model that we can all follow here in this city.
Well, there's space everywhere to grow things. I mean, round our factory in King's Cross, we've got a big permaculture forest garden. We've got 200 fruit trees growing there, and we've got altogether 80 different food crops. I mean, it's a wonderful place. So I can sit in front of my computer, and then I go for a walk around the gardens. There's Elaeagnus berries there at the moment, so I can walk around in the gardens that we built and planted on the banks of the railway lines there. And I can have a glass of my Chateau King's Cross from the vineyards that were built on the northern edge of the Lorry Park. So there's always these kinds of spaces everywhere. And we do aspire to have this permaculture gardens across all of the space there. I mean, we've extended it now to other orchards in the area, but planting the whole of the space and going up the sides of the buildings as well with this food growing is something that I think is very much needed in central London.
Of course, you are very, very, very ethically motivated, and organic is that key of your whole plan, isn't it? Organic.
Well, we are, I think, now right in the middle of what I term a bifurcation point. And for a whole series of reasons, the world is absolutely at a turning point. And I think it is as serious now as all of society will collapse or will reconfigure society in a higher state. So we are in, I believe, this transition between an unsustainable and a sustainable society. You know, a sustainable society is going to be an absolutely amazing place to live. And looking at the food supply chain, which is going to be fundamental to a sustainable society, I think that organic really has the potential, first of all, to be a food system that's fossil fuel free, so it won't require any fossil fuel inputs, but also because of its regulatory foundations, it is the only system that has the potential to be sustainable from all of the four foundations of sustainability. So it could be sustainable from an environmental point of view, from an economic point of view, from a social point of view, and from a governance point of view. So because of all of these reasons, I do think organic is the best food model to take forward into a sustainable future. So I do champion it. And I'm proud to say that my business, Alara, was the very first organic certified cereal company anywhere in the world.
That is so true. That experience of yours in that field, if it is shared across the globe, everybody can benefit because it works on some simple, easy to understand principles, and we can make a difference with that.
Yeah, but certainly when you see what's happened in Europe now, I mean, Europe has taken on at a governmental level the requirement for organic to be at the heart of their agricultural system. So they've got very specific targets for the development of organic food all across Europe, and recognize that this transition is going to take investment, time, effort, and education. So all of these things are being put in Europe. It's the same with, even in countries, I mean, the US, the market's growing very quickly. We've got big sales into Japan. Market there is growing all across the Far East. It's growing. So this year, globally, organic food will put on 14 billion US dollars to become $140 billion industry across the globe. And it's been growing at far more than 10% globally for more than 2 decades. So it does look as if it's got a very strong base now, and the requirements for a sustainable food system and how organic meets them is being recognized more and more globally.
You are listening, all of you, today, right now, to Ramadan Radio on 87.7 FM. We're talking to Alex Smith. The program, as you know, is called Who is Alex Smith? Alex has joined us today, this morning, and is explaining to us some of his journey of life, antics, and a lot of the good work that he has been doing. So if you have a question for Alex, then please do call on 0116 482 2086, or you can WhatsApp us on 077 855 So, Alex, people listen in and they're scratching their heads and saying, who is Alex Smith? So we are running through this program to detail as much as we can to explain to them. And quite interesting, your interaction with the across-the-board Asian communities, from the Hindu community, the Buddhist community, the Muslim community over the years, and how you have used your interactions with them for your daily life and for your business life as well, and worked the balance quite well, haven't you?
Yes, I feel very fortunate with my business life, and my personal life as well. I'm still having, let's be frank about this, Zed. Certainly, in some respects, now is, I think, the most important time of my life, in that we are now in this stage where society can move forward to a sustainable future. And I'm lucky that I know what I'm here to do, which is to do what I can to aid that transition from an unsustainable to a sustainable world. I mean, that's why I'm here. And it's why now I've put myself forward as a contestant in the local elections coming up. So I'm a Green Party candidate and I'm running for a council seat in the King's Cross ward. So I think that this is part of my journey now. I've never really taken part in that big P politics, but it does seem as if I've come round full circle, in that more or less 50 years ago, I decided to live without using money because of what I saw as inappropriate property development, and worked to inspire Camden Council to take over the property developing area where I was living. And now I can see Camden Council doing what I consider to be inappropriate property development. And this time it's inspired me to run as a councillor.
To make a difference.
Well, I think it's a good platform for me to be able to express my view on how the area could be developed, as opposed to the very financially focused development that Camden is proposing. I really want a much more community-focused development. So I think being a councillor with the Green Party and being part of Camden Council will give me a voice to make that argument.
Of course, all of you who are listening in right now, it's a bit of a lesson to learn for everybody here, is when you want to make a difference, you have to come to the front line and get inside the gate, inside the fence, to make a difference. If you're sitting outside, you'll make a lot of noise and you'll make no difference. And this is an example what Alex has shown to us. Of course, the argument here is one of the listeners has sent a message in saying that politicians today, or in the last decade or even the decade before, have only been good at making laws and making wars, and how none of that aligns with your school of thought, Alex, right? That the three fundamental things that you have talked about today as to what you want to do not at all align with that. So it's an interesting comment from one of the listeners.
Yes, I think that that's a very good comment, and I suppose one of the reasons why I've shied away from politics, in that what what politicians do really is make laws, and when you make laws, they have to be enforced. And when you enforce laws, you're using force. Now, when I said that I've got three tools: money, knowledge, and inspiration, inspiration, in a way, is half of power. So there's two types of power. Coercion is one type of power, and inspiration is another type of power. Now, coercion is the power I've always associated with politicians, and I think justly, rightly so. At the same time, their coercion can't have any place in a sustainable future or in a sustainable society, because it uses force, and force is an enormous waste of energy, if I can put it into its most basic elements. It destroys things, it wastes energy, it wastes human potential. But on the other hand, inspiration is the form of power that is sustainable. So I suppose what I want to do is move, certainly internally anyway, I see political power as being an inspirational thing. At least that's what I want to get for myself, and avoid the coercive element of political power.
Interesting. You're going to have some good discussions, some debates, and I know for one that you will inspire your colleagues if you are going to be selected. And often we look at politics and we says, "Are you have you been elected or were you selected?" And there is a big line there between the two: election and selection.
Yes, it's certainly one of the things that has pushed me to take this route, is that we've got a plan for the area where my factory is, on Camley Street. And we want to build, a very big development there called the Camley Street Sustainability Zone. And we've got, world-class architects, we've got big pension providers, we've got world-class lawyers, planners, structural engineers. So we've got an amazing group of professionals who've been supporting us.
Great. They're all aligned with your vision, are they?
Yes, they're all, well, they've been absolutely supporting us, doing master plans and working with us on the neighbourhood plan, which has now been adopted. And Camden Council has refused to consider this development. And not only has Camden Council refused to consider this development, there was 6 Labour councillors who actually supported this view, or this vision. And because of their support for this vision, they've now been deselected by Camden Labour Party, so they can no longer be Camden councillors. So because they made their voice heard, and because Camden Council disliked what they were saying so much, they were deselected, so they can no longer represent their communities. So what is absolutely happening now?
So is it a little bit like being in a nursery school or a primary school to say, be a good boy, sit there quietly, have your tea and biscuits, and do as you're told?
Yeah, well, I think it is exactly that difference as you put it there. Are you selected or are you elected? And what's happened now with Camden Council, the Camden Council councillors is that they've now been selected, and they've been selected to adhere to the cabinet views to continue to push what I consider to be extremely inappropriate developments in Camden. Just to give you one example of why I think it's inappropriate, we have an absolute real need for affordable homes in Camden. Yet Camden Council now has spent £705 million, and with that money, they've only built 267 new council homes. They say that there's no alternative to their scheme, even though the plans that they've got now are going to spend another £260 million and produce another 71 council homes. I think they need to understand that good homes are absolutely vital to good communities, and spending this amount of money and producing such a miserly amount of council homes, I think is really, I just can't understand it, to be honest. I don't understand how they can continue along this route and say there's no alternative.
So, of course, Alex, it must be very frustrating for you. You're kind of a person who you do say that you are this world that we live in. What is our essence for being in this world? Why are we here? And you've always told me that it's meaning and reason, right? And you certainly have got your meanings and your reasons, and you act upon them.
Yes, I think that's one of the things that I've realized is that work is a key element, to do. Everybody, or certainly I know that I need to do, not just think about things, but doing things is absolutely vital as well. As Einstein said, genius is 5% inspiration and 95% perspiration. So that 95% perspiration absolutely has to be at the forefront of what I and others do.
Of course, it brings me back to say, when we are all working together to a shared vision, when you are doing good and you tell us your story, and we get inspired by it, and we want to do some good as well. And in the spirit of Ramadan, in the life of a Muslim, we say that, your good actions follow your good thoughts. You have good reasons, good meanings. We read our spiritual book, the Quran, and we follow that with good actions. And that is what defines us as our good actions. It defines us as human beings. So as Muhammad Ali said, that your work that you do for another is your room in heaven. The good that you do in this world is going to be followed by your blessings in Almighty Heaven. And that's how he always would preach to everybody.
I think the other thing that I've found more and more too is that a good judge of whether the actions that I take are correct is how, I think, to put it in Muslim terms, the will of God integrates and as if presents gifts to me, how things just synchronously, as if by chance, fit together to push me with these whole series of linkages in the direction that I'm supposed to be going. So the more I align myself with the will of God, the more God makes clear the path.
I can understand that. I always say that if you're selected in doing good work, then you are blessed, and you continue to do that and get inspired by others also who are doing work and so on. Now, interestingly, we're going to bring it back to the A to Z of taxes, all the taxes that we pay in this country from letter A to letter Z. And the message came in saying that the best of these is the letter Z. Of course, it's not referring to me, Z, but it's referring to the zakat tax, which is a 2.5% on your earnings, which we then use that money to alleviate poverty. So, Alex, and you are quite impressed with that analogy and school of thought, aren't you?
Yes, I think one of the things I'm, in a way, is I see it as an expression of how God has blessed me. So it's in a way, rejoicing in that blessing is my ability to give. It's an expression of my strength, if you like. And we've always been giving quite a lot. We supply food banks. I mean, over the last 2 years, my business has supplied about 100,000 meals to the King's Cross, the people in need in King's Cross. We've always supported charities working in Central and South America. We've sent about 50,000 meals to Ukraine over the last 4 weeks, and taking part in the community and giving to the community in that, for instance, we have 2 parties every year at our factory, a wassailing party where we celebrate the coming back of the power of the soil and the land, and the harvest party. We've always sponsored these and invited all of our community to them. So giving back is an expression of the blessings that I've received.
That is wonderful. So that is the essence of what we do here. Is 2.5% of our earnings we give to charity across the globe. And during the month of Ramadan, all the up and down the country, all the Muslim organizations, the mosques, everybody is in that frame of mind. But to maintain that is the key to success. So people like yourselves who are not of the faith of Islam, but your actions are very good and an inspiration to all of us listening in right now, that you are very supportive of community engagement. And this is where throughout the period of COVID, 3 years now, the response, the recovery cannot happen unless everybody in the community have an input to support each other, especially the vulnerable, Alex.
Yes, to take one of the famous sayings from a different religion, blessed are the poor in spirit. So, they are an inspiration to us all, I think.
So that is a message from Alex Smith today. He's standing as a Green Party councillor in Camden Council in London. So everybody wish him success with that. And we need good people to stand for meaning and reason. So thank you very much, Alex, this morning. It's been wonderful to have you.
Good. Thanks, Ed.